I still remember that morning clearly. I was standing like a statue in front of our rented house, 9 months pregnant with a huge belly, my maternity dress, starting to get soaked with amniotic fluid. Meanwhile, my husband stared wide-eyed at the car seat and said in a harsh tone, "This leather upholstery is expensive, Lucy. Can't you just hold it in for a little while?" And after that, he ordered me to get out, put my suitcase on the sidewalk, and just left. My name is Lucy. I'm 29 years old. At that moment, I was 37 weeks pregnant, living with my husband Alex, 34, in a small 400 square foot rented apartment in Evanston, just outside of Chicago. Our place was cramped, 2 tiny bedrooms, a kitchen where barely one person could fit, and walls so thin you could clearly hear the neighbors' alarm clock and arguments every morning. In the mornings, I'd often hear the rumble of the garbage truck or the distant rattling of the L train. My pregnancy was not easy. I had cramps at night so bad I couldn't sleep. I threw up so much in the first trimester that I lost 10 pounds. And every time I got up in the morning, my back felt like it was going to split in two. But I endured it because I thought all pregnant women went through this. Alex worked as a senior associate at a private leasing firm on the magnificent Mile in Chicago. He left early before I woke up and came back late when I was already tired of waiting. But what made me feel most alone was that lately, I was going to his mother's lake house in Michigan every single weekend. I was left alone at home from Friday afternoon until Sunday night. Everything changed since I got pregnant. Alex, who used to be attentive, slowly became cold. He rarely touched my belly, rarely asked about the pregnancy, and never, not even once, accompanied me to my OBGYN appointments. Every time I asked him to come with me, the answer was always the same. "I have an important meeting, Lucy. You can go by yourself." If I asked for help lifting the heavy water jugs because my back hurt, he would answer cynically, "You're on maternity leave. Don't tell me you can't even handle a jug of water." When I asked for help organizing the baby's room, which was still full of cardboard boxes, he told me brusquely, "You're the one at home. You're the one who has to sort it out." Even small things like breakfast became a problem. One morning, our toaster broke, and the bread burned. Alex immediately made a snide comment. "You can't even make breakfast. I'll have breakfast at my mom's tomorrow." 3 days before the incident, Alex suddenly informed me that he had planned to go to the family's lake house. I immediately objected because the doctor had already warned me not to travel by car for more than an hour, let alone on winding country roads. But Alex got angry and said, "My mother used to take a bus to the market when she was 9 months pregnant and she was perfectly fine. You're just spoiled." I couldn't refuse. I knew if I forced him to stay it would be a huge conflict, and I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. That morning, I got up earlier. Even though I had barely slept the night before, because of a terrible backache, I made him his favorite Keurig coffee and some boiled eggs. Although my body felt very tired and nauseous, I wanted him to be happy, at least this morning. Alex walked into the dining area looking at his phone with an expressionless face. He saw the slightly burnt toast on the plate and grumbled, "Burnt. Again." I held back my tears. My voice came out soft. "I'm sorry, honey. The toaster's broken." He didn't even look at me. He just grabbed his briefcase and said, "Forget it. I'm sure Mom has cooked something delicious at the lake house. Come on, hurry up, we're leaving now." I grabbed the small suitcase I already had packed with a change of clothes and things for the baby, just in case I had sudden contractions. I walked slowly to Alex's SUV parked in front of the house. My hands were shaking as I opened the SUV door. As soon as I sat in the passenger seat, I felt something strange. A warm liquid suddenly flowed down my legs. I panicked. Seconds later, my water broke, soaking the leather upholstery of the car that Alex had just cleaned a week ago. "Alex, my water broke! We have to go to the hospital right now!" I panicked. My heart was pounding. But Alex didn't start the car immediately. He didn't panic as I imagined. Instead, he looked at his seat. His face turned red, suppressing his anger. And then he cursed. "This upholstery is expensive, Lucy. You couldn't wait? This is a disgrace. You're going to stain everything." I was silent. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I endured the pain in my belly, which was beginning to contract. My voice trembled. "Please, take me to The hospital, Alex, please. I'm having contractions. But Alex didn't listen. He got out of the car, yanked my door open, and pulled my arm. Get out and call an Uber. I can't cancel the trip to the lake house. My dad and mom are already waiting for me. I couldn't say anything. My body was trembling. He took my suitcase out of the trunk, left it on the curb, and got back in the car. Without another word, he slammed the door and sped off, leaving me alone on the side of the road, my clothes soaked and contractions getting stronger and stronger. I stood there, unable to think clearly. My right hand held my aching belly. My left hand tried to unlock my phone to call an ambulance, but the signal was weak. My hands were shaking, and tears began to stream down my face, uncontrollably. I felt the world spinning. My vision began to blur. I almost collapsed onto the sidewalk when I suddenly heard fast footsteps from the Yay-Dote entrance of the alley. Someone ran up and shouted in a panic. Lucy? Oh my God! What's wrong with you? Did your water break? Come on, I'll take you. The person who held my hand in the car, who wiped the sweat from my brow in the seated emergency room, and who saw my daughter's face for the first time was not my husband, but a neighbor whose name I only knew from the neighborhood Facebook group. The one who ran to me was Karen, 39, a single mother who lived 3 doors down from me. I had only said hello to her once or twice on the street, never more than that, but that morning, she saved me. Without asking many questions, she helped me directly into her old, a bit worn-out Honda Civic. She drove fast towards the women's hospital, the nearest maternity hospital to my house. In the car, the contractions were so strong I couldn't speak. I could only moan, enduring the pain. Karen kept reassuring me, while glancing back occasionally. Breathe deeply, Lucy, slowly. I've already messaged the ER. Calm down, we're almost there. I was crying not only from the pain, but because this person I barely knew cared, more than my own husband. My husband, who had promised before a judge to care for me in sickness and in health. Upon arriving at the hospital, orderlies took me directly in a wheelchair to the Plusipal ER. They attended to me quickly because my condition was already critical. Karen didn't go home, she waited outside. She even helped handle the paperwork and paid the deposit with her own money. They took me to the delivery room. The doctor said I had to give birth immediately because my water had been broken for over 2 hours. The labor process felt very long and painful. I screamed and cried. And in my head, there was only one question. Why do I have to go through this alone? Finally, after hours of struggle, my daughter was born, a healthy baby girl with a strong cry named Valentina. But I suffered a minor hemorrhage after delivery because my blood pressure spiked due to extreme stress. The doctor said I needed complete bed rest. When I woke up from the anesthesia, I saw Karen sitting in the chair next to my bed. She had brought me bottled water and clean clothes. My eyes filled with tears when I saw her. Karen, thank you, I whispered hoarsely. She smiled gently. It's okay, don't think about it. The important thing is that you and the baby are healthy. Valentina is beautiful, Lucy. I was in the hospital for 3 days. In those 3 days, Alex didn't show up, didn't send any news, didn't call. Even the family group chat, which was normally buzzing with activity, was completely silent this time. No one congratulated me or asked how I was. The one who was there was Karen, who came every day bringing food, helping to change my dressings, and teaching me the correct way to breastfeed since it was my first time. I didn't know how to thank her enough. On the 3rd night, I finally gathered the courage to contact my parents, whom I hadn't seen in 2 years. I had cut off my relationship with them because they didn't agree with me marrying Alex. They said Alex wasn't the right person, but I was stubborn. I thought I knew better. My father, Michael, answered the phone with a soft voice. I could feel the concern in his tone. Lucy, where are you, honey? I burst into tears as soon as I heard his voice. I told him everything about how Alex had abandoned me, about how I gave birth alone, about how I didn't know what to do now. Dad was silent for a long time before saying, "We'll be there. This afternoon. Wait for us, honey." When they arrived, my mother, Rose, hugged me tightly while crying. She said, "Nothing," just held me as if she never wanted to let go. Dad stood beside her, his face tense and his gaze sharp. After a long silence, Dad finally said in a low but determined voice, "We're not going to stay quiet this time." I didn't. I know what he meant at that moment, but I felt something different in the way Dad looked at me. There was a contained anger, but also a firmness that made me feel safe. The next day, Karen came again. This time she brought something, a small brown envelope. She gave it to me carefully. "Lucy, this is for you," she said softly. I opened the envelope. Inside was a small USB drive and a handwritten piece of paper. I read the note. It said, "Security camera footage from when Lucy entered the hospital, from the night shift guard who felt sorry for you." I looked at Karen, confused. She sat next to me and explained, "I know one of the security guards here. He told me there was a recording of you coming in. Soaked, pale, almost fainting. He saved it because he thought you might need it someday." I couldn't say anything. My hands trembled holding the USB drive. Karen took my hand and said softly but firmly, "If you need a witness, I'm ready. I saw with my own eyes how your husband abandoned you. I won't stay silent if you decide to fight." That night, after everyone had fallen asleep, I opened the briefcase Dad had brought. Inside were several official documents. I read them one by one, with trembling hands, a divorce petition, a request for full custody of the child, and on top, a small note written by Dad that said, "You just have to say the word, honey." I looked at Valentina sleeping peacefully beside me. Her face was so calm, so innocent. I didn't want her to grow up watching her mother be belittled, insulted, and ignored. I didn't want her to think this was a normal way to treat a woman. I picked up my phone and wrote a message to my dad. The message was short, just 3 words. "I'm ready, Dad." I never imagined that a simple 1-3-second video, discreetly recorded by a medical resident, could destroy the reputation of a family that had always considered themselves so righteous and proper. 2 days after I left the hospital, Karen came to my parents' house with a serious face. She brought her phone and showed me something that left me speechless. "Lucy, you have to see this," she said, handing me the phone. On the screen was a short video that was going viral on TikTok. I recognized the place. It was the sidewalk in front of my rented apartment, and I recognized the person in the video. It was me. The video was taken from across the street. It clearly showed me standing, limping, with my clothes soaked, holding my large belly. Then it showed Alex getting out of the car, yelling with an angry face, slamming the car door hard, and immediately speeding off, leaving me alone. Although my face was a bit blurry due to the distance, the SUV's license plate and the parking sign in front of the house were quite clear. A medical resident who was interning at the clinic across from your house recorded this, Karen explained quietly. He wasn't recording it on purpose. He was making content about the life of a med student, but he just happened to capture the incident. I looked at the phone screen with mixed feelings. On one hand, I felt ashamed, but on the other, a part of me felt relieved because finally, there was real proof of what had happened to me. The video has been viewed over 2.2 million times in 24 hours, Karen added. And it's hit the For You page. A lot of people are sharing it. I opened the comments section. Thousands of comments from strangers. There were those praying for me, those who were furious, those trying to find out who the culprit was. "Oh my God, the husband really leaves his wife while her water is breaking? Where is this? This makes me so angry. I hope the mother and baby are okay. The husband has no heart." That's not a husband, that's a devil in a suit. Within hours, the video spread to Facebook groups, parenting forums, and even alumni networks. Internet sleuths got to work. They looked up the car's owner, his social media profiles, his workplace, even his parents' names. Alex's name began to spread with nicknames that gave me chills. The husband who abandons. His pregnant wife. I didn't expect it to go this far. I hadn't even had time to decide what to do, but the world had moved faster. 3 days later, Alex suddenly deleted all his social media accounts. His Instagram account disappeared. His LinkedIn was inaccessible. But he made one last post on his Facebook before disappearing. A long text trying to defend himself. Don't believe everything you see on social media. Many cruel slanders are being spread to destroy our family. We have our own side of the story, but we choose to remain silent because we are a civilized family. Alex's mother, Teresa, even wrote a comment under that post. Women today are so dramatic and exaggerated. Just because she wanted to spoil our vacation, she threatens to go to the media. We've had enough patience. I read that comment over and over. Every word felt like a slap in the face. They called me exaggerated. They said I had taken this to the media. I know someone was recording, but what crushed my chest was that they didn't know I had the hospital's security footage. They didn't know I had witnesses. They thought I was just a weak wife who would shut up and take it. That night, Dad came into my room with a thick folder. He sat next to me and opened it slowly. Lucy, these are the divorce papers, the custody filing, and a petition for a temporary freeze on his assets, he said in a calm but firm voice. We're not going to get into a war of words on social media. We'll play this by the book, legally. Dad showed me a business card. On it was the name Miss Davis, a senior family law attorney. Dad knew her through an old friend. She had handled many similar cases. She says your case is strong, very strong, Dad explained, but you have to be prepared because this process won't be easy. I stared at the papers for a long time. My hand trembled as I held the pen. But I knew this was the only way. The next day, Miss Davis came to the house. She was a woman in her 50s with a sharp gaze and a very direct way of speaking. She didn't beat around the bush. I've seen the video. I've also read the timeline your father wrote, she said, as she opened her laptop. We will use a simultaneous legal and media strategy. Miss Davis explained her plan. First, file for divorce on grounds of gross neglect and abandonment. Second, file for sole custody because the father was not present at the birth and provided no support. Third, file a lawsuit for damages for the emotional distress I suffered. But the most important thing, she added, looking at me intently, is that we must have very solid evidence. There can't be a single crack. I gave her everything I had, the hospital security footage showing I was admitted in critical condition, the medical report on my condition, the text, messages with Alex showing he ignored my pleas, and most importantly, Karen's testimony. Miss Davis smiled slightly after reviewing all the evidence. This is more than enough. They won't be able to get away with this. A few days later, the lawyer sent official papers via a process server to Alex's family's address. The content was clear. Alex had to appear in court or a default judgment would be entered against him. But what made our steps even stronger was that Miss Davis also contacted some media outlets, not to seek sensationalism, but to document the case. She arranged interviews with media, focused on women's and children's issues. We will not attack personally, the lawyer clarified, but we will ensure that the public knows this is not a typical domestic drama. This is about abandonment and psychological abuse. Within a week, several online news portals began to publish my story, with my identity protected, of course, but the story was strong enough to get people talking. Meanwhile, Alex and his family began to feel the impact. Teresa's bakery, which used to be busy, started to empty out. Old customers began to avoid it. On social media, many shared the store's address with scathing comments. The group of friends Teresa used to meet with suddenly kicked her out, without explanation. Even the neighbors in their gated community started whispering whenever the family passed by. I didn't feel happy seeing them suffer, but I didn't feel pity either. These were the consequences of their wanchane choices. One night my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered carefully. Lucy. It's me. Alex's voice sounded from the other side. His voice was hoarse, like someone who hadn't slept in days. I remained silent, not knowing what to say. Please, stop all this. I'm begging you. Mom is sick from the stress. The shop has closed. Everyone is insulting us, he said in a pleading tone. But before I could respond, his tone changed, becoming cold as before. If you continue with this, everyone will know that you were the one who started it. You're the one who made a scene. I smiled bitterly. He still didn't get it. Alex, I said firmly. I didn't start anything. You started it when you left me on the sidewalk. I hung up the phone and immediately took a screenshot of the call log and sent it to Miss Davis. She replied quickly. Good. This is evidence of a threat. We can use it. The courtroom felt very cold, even though the sun was shining brightly outside. I sat on the hard wooden chair, my sweaty hands clutching the small purse that contained all the evidence I had gathered. Beside me, Miss Davis sat calmly, her gaze fixed ahead. Dad and Mom were sitting in the back row, giving me strength, just with their presence. It was the first day of the trial. I didn't know what to expect. I only knew that today was the day I had to face Alex directly before the judge. The courtroom door opened. Alex walked in with his mother, Teresa, and a lawyer, in a black suit who looked very self-assured. Alex looked different. His hair was more neatly combed than usual. He wore a white shirt and black dress pants, but his face was pale. His eyes avoided mine. Teresa shot me a sharp look full of hatred. She whispered something in her lawyer's ear. The lawyer then nodded. While jotting something down, the judge entered. We all stood. The trial began. Miss Davis opened with a very firm argument. Your Honor, my client, Lucy, is filing for divorce on the grounds of severe abandonment. On September 23rd, when my client's water broke, the defendant abandoned her alone on the sidewalk. Without any assistance, we have video evidence, eyewitness testimony, and medical reports from the hospital. Alex's lawyer immediately stood up. Objection, Your Honor. That is a recording, taken without permission and disseminated to slander my client. The incident was not as described. The defendant only asked the plaintiff to find other transportation due to a family emergency. I held my breath. They were really going to defend that action. Miss Davis was unfazed. She produced document after document. This is the report from the doctor who treated my client. It clearly states that my client was admitted to the hospital with severe dehydration, low blood pressure, and was close to fainting. This is the written testimony of Karen, the neighbor who helped her. And this is the hospital's security footage showing my client's conditions pour n'arriver. The judge requested that all the evidence be submitted. I saw Alex's face begin to change. He seemed restless, his hands clenched into fists on the table. His lawyer tried to defend himself again. Your Honor, this is a family misunderstanding. The defendant made a mistake. Yes, but the plaintiff is also exaggerating, bringing a personal matter into the legal arena. Miss Davis immediately interrupted. A mistake? Abandoning a wife who is in labor is a mistake? This is not just a family problem, Your Honor. This is abandonment that endangered lives. The judge banged the gavel and said in a grave voice, We need time to review all the evidence. The hearing is postponed for 2 weeks. I order both parties not to contact each other. I sighed deeply. The first session was over, but the weight on my chest did not lessen. In fact, it felt heavier. As I left the courtroom, I heard Teresa speaking loudly to her lawyer. Who does that small-town girl think she is? She should be grateful my son even wanted to be with her. I stopped for a moment. I wanted to turn around and answer, but Dad held my arm and slowly shook his head. No, honey, don't stoop to their level. 2 weeks later, the second session began. This time, Karen attended as a pre-6-day witness. She stood before the judge calmly and recounted what she saw that morning. I saw Lucy standing on the sidewalk with her clothes wet. She was holding her belly while crying. The car was already gone, and she was alone in the suitcase next to her. I knew immediately it was an emergency, so I took her to the hospital. Karen explained in a clear voice. Alex's lawyer tried to attack. Did the witness directly see the conversation between the defendant and the plaintiff? I didn't hear it directly, Karen answered truthfully, but I saw the husband get out of the car, slam the door, and drive away immediately. Lucy was clearly in a condition that required assistance. The judge also read the report from the ER doctor who treated me that night. The patient was admitted in critical condition, a drop in pressure, severe dehydration, and strong contractions. The patient nearly went into shock. A delay of a few more minutes could have endangered the lives of both the mother and the baby. I saw Alex lower his head deeply, covering his face with his hands. I don't know if he was remorseful or just ashamed. I didn't know, and I no longer cared. Miss Davis continued to present additional evidence. Your Honor, during the blank 3 days my client was hospitalized. The defendant never visited, never called, and sent no news. Even after his daughter was born, the defendant never inquired about the condition of his own baby. Alex's lawyer tried to defend him. The defendant was under pressure due to family problems. What family problem is more important than the birth of your first child, Miss Davis asked sharply. The room fell silent. No one could answer. Finally, the judge banged the gavel and issued a provisional ruling. Based on the existing evidence, the court grants the provisional divorce petition. Custody of the child Valentina is awarded to the plaintiff, Lucy. The defendant, Alex, is ordered to pay child support in an amount to be determined in the next session. As collateral, the defendant's bonus of $5,000 will be temporarily frozen. I heard Teresa shout from the back. This is unfair. We are the victims here. The judge stared at her. Ma'am, maintain order in the court. Leaving the courtroom, I felt relieved but also wary. I knew this wasn't over. A family like his would not accept defeat easily. And I was right. As I was walking to my dad's car, I saw a well-dressed man in the distance hurriedly entering the court clerk's office. Karen, who was walking beside me, gently touched my shoulder and whispered, "That's Alex's brother. It looks like they want to file a disclaimer of inheritance or transfer of assets." I clutched my document case tightly. They really didn't know when to stop, but I no longer cared. I had started this, and I was going to see it through to the end. In the car, Dad asked quietly, "Are you sure, honey? This is just the beginning. They might play even dirtier." I looked at Valentina, who was sleeping in my mom's arms. Her innocent, peaceful face gave me strength. "I'm sure, Dad," I answered firmly. "I don't want Valentina to grow up thinking her mother is a weak woman who stays silent when treated like trash. I want her to know her mother fought back." Dad nodded slowly and started the car. I knew the journey was still long, but for the first time in a long time, I felt I was on the right path. I thought, that was enough. It turned out it wasn't. That day, an anonymous courier delivered a package with photos of fake receipts, a deed to the house in someone else's name, and a letter from Teresa. They thought I would back down. I was just getting started. After the court's decision gave me temporary custody and froze the bonus funds, I began to build a new rhythm of life at my parents' house. In the mornings, I would wake up to breastfeed Valentina. Then, I would write on my blog about the bloggers' struggles of being a single mother. Many women going through similar situations began to contact me through private messages, sharing their stories, asking for advice. I also joined women's community groups on social media, sharing tips and experiences. For the first time in my life, I felt I had a purpose greater than just surviving. But I also knew that Alex and his family weren't finished. They were too arrogant to accept defeat, and I was not mistaken. One afternoon, a courier brought a large brown envelope with no return address. Only my parents' address was written on the front. I opened it carefully. Inside were several documents that made my blood run cold. First, a photocopy of the deed to Alex's family home, which had already been transferred to his older brother's name. The date of the title change was 2 weeks after the video went viral. Second, photos of receipts for a $10,000 money transfer from Alex's account to his nephew's personal account. And third, a handwritten letter from Teresa, the contents of which made me both angry and laugh bitterly. "We will not return to court. But if you want peace in all of this, do not destroy our family." I read the letter over and over. They were hiding assets, laundering money into other accounts, and then asking for peace. They thought I was a fool. I immediately took all this evidence to Miss Davis and my father. The lawyer read the documents with a serious expression, nodding occasionally, and then smiled slightly. "They have made a huge mistake," she said as she rearranged the documents. "This is called fraudulent conveyance to avoid child support obligations. This can be grounds for an additional lawsuit. Miss Davis immediately prepared a new strategy. First, a request to freeze the most third-party accounts that received suspicious transfers. Second, a court order to place a lien on assets. Third, an additional lawsuit for fraudulent conveyance. They think that by putting assets in someone else's name, they can escape their obligations. It's not that easy, the lawyer explained firmly. A few days later, my phone rang from a new unknown number. I answered, cautiously. Lucy, that's enough. What do you really want? Alex's voice was angry on the other end. If you keep this up, I'll tell everyone you're crazy. You're the one who blew this all up. I listened calmly, without responding. Are you happy embarrassing the family? Mom doesn't even dare to go to the grocery store anymore. The bakery closed because of you. Are you happy to see us? Suffer? He continued, his voice trembling between anger and desperation. I waited for him to finish speaking and then said in a flat tone, I didn't do anything, Alex. You created all of this when you left me on the sidewalk and now you have to take responsibility. Before he could reply, I hung up. I screenshotted the call log and sent it to Miss Davis. She replied quickly, good. Save all evidence of threats. We can request a protection order if he continues to threaten you. The hearing resumed a week later. This time, the judge opened the new file submitted by Miss Davis. Inside was all the evidence of suspicious fund flows, proof of the transferred house deed without being reported as a marital asset, and, most surprisingly, evidence of WhatsApp conversations from Alex's family. Group chat. The lawyer had obtained these screenshots from an anonymous source. I don't know who leaked it, but the content was very clear. They were planning to hide assets before I won completely. The judge read all the evidence with a serious face. Alex's lawyer tried to defend him, but this time his argument was weak. There was nothing he could deny, because all the evidence was right before his eyes. Meanwhile, the social impact on Alex's family was becoming more and more palpable. Teresa's bakery closed permanently. Many customers stopped going. After learning the viral story, Teresa's photo was even spread in national prison parenting groups with a hashtag that both saddened and relieved me, because, in the end, many people knew who they really were. In their neighborhood, people began to distance themselves. Even the president of the Homeowners Association refused to invite them to the block party. No one wanted to be associated with the family that went viral for something so terrible. The most painful thing for me was that the neighborhood kids started teasing Valentina as the baby her dad threw away. Although Valentina was still a baby and didn't understand anything, I knew that if I didn't act soon, that taunt, I would follow my daughter until she was older. That's why I immediately requested a change of residence to Naperville, near my parents' home, which was quieter. News about Alex was also becoming more and more worrying. After losing his job, due to the case's virality, he worked for a while as an Uber driver, but it didn't last long. He was fired due to many negative reviews from passengers who recognized his face. Another video even went viral of him getting angry with a passenger who gave him a bad rating. That video destroyed his reputation even more. There were rumors that he was now living off loans at a relative's house, in a small town, living on debt, and the pity of the family who still wanted to help him. One night, my phone received a voicemail from Teresa. Her voice sounded tired and pleading, very different from her arrogant attitude before. Lucy, please. For the good name of the family, let's make peace. We promise not to bother you anymore. We have suffered enough. Alex has nothing left. I listened to that message over and over. A part of the old me might have felt pity, but the new me, who had learned to value herself, knew this wasn't revenge, it was justice. I replied via text message, Ma'am, peace doesn't come from promises. Peace comes from responsibility. If you and Alex don't dare to take responsibility, I will continue to claim my rights and my daughter's. There was no reply after that. A few days later, Karen came to the house with a worried look. She showed me a screenshot from a fake social media account that seemed to be created by Alex or someone paid by his family. Lucy, this fake account is spreading a rumor that you're a gold digger. They're saying you staged the drama on purpose to get attention and money, Karen explained, handing me the phone. I read the posts calmly. They were trying to tarnish my name in the worst way. But this time I didn't get angry. On the contrary, I smiled slightly. In that case, I said, looking at the phone screen, it's time to release all the recordings I've never published. I had more evidence that I hadn't yet revealed. Recordings of conversations, rude text messages, even videos where Alex yelled and insulted me in front of his family. All this time I had kept them because I didn't want to be too brutal. But if they had chosen this path, I would no longer hold back. The best revenge is when the people who belittled you finally have to watch you. Be happy without them. And that day, as I held Valentina's hand, who was just starting to learn to stand wearing a dark blue dress in front of the courthouse building, I knew I had already won. The court accepted all the additional evidence I presented, recordings of insults from Alex and his family, suspicious fund flows to third parties, and even the defamation attempt through fake accounts that were eventually traced by Miss Davis's team. The lawyer demanded 3 main things in this final session. First, a final divorce decree without mediation, because it was clear there was no good faith from the defendant. Second, child support, which must be guaranteed for at least 3 years in advance or with real collateral. Third, compensation for mental recovery due to the stress caused by social media and the defendant's family. The final session began that morning. The room felt more tense than before. Alex came alone this time, without his mother, without the confident lawyer from before. He sat in the chair with a disheveled look, unpolished shoes, and messy hair. He looked like someone who had completely given up. The judge opened the session and read all the accumulated evidence. One by one, all of Alex's and his family's mistakes were read clearly. Abandonment, fraudulent conveyance, threats, defamation, everything was neatly recorded. Alex's new lawyer, a young public defender who seemed inexperienced, tried to argue with weak points, but even he seemed unsure of what he was saying. Alex was asked to speak. He stood up, staggering, his hands trembling. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "I give up. Do whatever you want," that was all he said. No defense, no apology, nothing. Just total surrender. The judge banged the gavel with a loud sound that echoed throughout the room. Based on all the evidence and testimony, the court finds in favor of the plaintiff's petition in its entirety. The marriage between Lucy and Alex is dissolved. Full custody of the child, Valentina, is granted to Lucy. The defendant, Alex, is ordered to pay monthly child support and is prohibited from coming within 500 yards of the plaintiff. If he violates this, criminal penalties will apply. I heard the verdict with extraordinary relief. There was no excessive joy, no desire to cheer, just a deep sense of relief because, finally, all of this was over. As I left the courtroom, I saw Alex standing in a corner of the hallway, staring blankly at the floor. For a moment, our eyes met. There was no hatred in my eyes, but no forgiveness either, just emptiness. We were complete strangers. Now, a few weeks after the final ruling, my family and I moved permanently to Naperville. Our new house was simple but comfortable, with a small yard where Valentina could play when she got older, away from the hustle, away from the prating seas, judgmental eyes of people. I began to focus on the blog I managed. My writings on the struggles of single mothers were being read more and more. I started getting invited as a speaker in various women's communities, sharing experiences, and encouraging those going through the same thing. Many women contacted me to vent about the domestic violence they were suffering. Some were still afraid to fight, others were confused about where to start. I tried to help in any way I could, referring them to trusted lawyers, giving them moral support. For the first time in my life, I felt useful not just as a wife or mother, but as myself, with a voice and the ability to make a change. Amidst my new routine, there was one person who often showed up to help. Matt, Karen's younger brother who worked as a handyman, would often come by to fix a leaky faucet, change a burnt-out light bulb, or just bring vitamins for Valentina, if I was busy. At first, I felt uncomfortable, like I was being a bother, but Matt always said naturally, "It's no problem, Lucy. Besides, Karen's house is nearby, it's on my way." What made me start to open my heart was the way he treated Valentina. Every time he came, he would greet Valentina gently, pick her up carefully. He would play with her until Valentina laughed out loud. Valentina even calmed down faster if Matt held her than other people. One night, while I was watering the plants in the yard, Matt came over with a small box. He gave it to me a bit awkwardly. "This is for you and Valentina," he said, scratching his head even though it didn't itch. I opened the box. Inside was a simple wooden bracelet with the names Lucy and Valentina engraved on it, made with full attention to detail. "I don't know what chapter of life you're in, Lucy," Matt said softly, looking at me, "but if you'll let me, I'd like to be a part of the next page." I was silent, not knowing what to say. My heart was still fragile, still afraid to trust again. But seeing his sincere eyes, seeing the way he treated Valentina like his own daughter, something began to melt inside me. I didn't answer that night. I just smiled. But for the first time in a long time, my smile was a smile without wounds. Meanwhile, news about Alex became increasingly scarce. It was known that he moved to a small town in rural Ohio. He worked as a warehouse loader in the market. No one cared about him anymore. His family was gradually forgotten by Lash. Their community, the shop closed. Their social status collapsed. Everything was destroyed by their own actions. And surprisingly, I didn't feel happy seeing their destruction. I just felt an emptiness, because it turned out that karma worked on its own without me having to do anything more. One afternoon, I sat in the yard with Valentina asleep in my arms. I opened my laptop and started writing on my blog. This time, I wrote about victory. You don't need to defeat your enemy with anger. It's enough to stay standing, to stay alive, and to show that you are not destroyed. The best revenge is the happiness you build on the rubble they left behind. At the end of the text, I uploaded a photo of my hand holding Valentina's tiny hand, with the background of a beautiful brick-red sunset sky. The post was read by thousands of people in a matter of hours. Many commented, many shared similar stories, many gave encouragement, and for the first time, I felt I was not alone. A few months later, while pushing the baby stroller for an afternoon walk, I stopped for a moment and looked towards my phone's camera, which I had placed on a bench to record the moment. I smiled and said softly but firmly, "This fight wasn't to make him suffer. It's so my daughter knows that her mother will never to be silenced by fear. And I hope that all the women out there who are struggling know that you are not alone. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be respected." I turned off the camera and continued walking, pushing Valentina's stroller. The evening sky was very clear. A gentle breeze brushed my face delicately, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free.